And welcome everybody to Spiritual Warfare Friday, and tonight's broadcast is 1666, the hidden hand of the Illuminati and the New World Order. So we are now
live. What's up, guys?
What's going on, guys? How you doing? So there's Jon Pounders here joining us tonight with me and Brian. So this is gonna be a hard hitting show, guys. Lots of information, and this is pre-Illuminati, going into the Illuminati, New World Order stuff, and the banking cartel. All this is tied into this. From Frankinism all the way back to Sabatini's Zavi, which we claim to be the Messiah. We're going to get into all this stuff, man. There is so much junk involved with the Kabbalah, all this New Age mysticism, Jewish mysticism, all this stuff is all, the stuff we've been covering for the last month, really. Crazy stuff, man. Tonight, again, we're going to base off this book by Robert Sefer, 1666, Redemption Through Sin. And wait till you hear some of the sick stuff, man. I'll tell you. But like always, like in the show, the Midnight Ride, we don't hold stuff back, guys. You put your big boy pants on, your big girl pants on, and we're gonna get real deep into the stuff here. And we got the book right here. Thank you, John, for this book, by the way. When I was out in Indiana, he gave me this book here, and I really been studying this stuff a lot. And wow, crazy stuff, man. So what's going on, John?
Man, not much. And you're right about that, dude. It's the most interesting part about all of this is it's way more widespread than people may think, and has a huge impact on the Kabbalistic crowd. I'm talking about it's the most popular form of Kabbalism, and that we're going to be talking about tonight. I mean, just what people don't understand about this is what the Bible refers to when it's talking about the synagogue of Satan. This is it, and it's just. I can't wait to talk about it. And I think me and David did a show on this a while back on Rumble. It was called Flight of the Kabbalah Wizards, and it was discussing this. And I gave you that book because I knew you'd be interested in it, because it ties in almost every broken piece of the puzzle or missing piece of the puzzle. It ties it in and helps you understand how this is so well formed and how it's so organized.
Oh, it is, man. And it goes to the Lurian Kabbalah, Lurian version of the Kabbalah from Isaac Luria, which we're going to get into in a little while. But this is so deep. When John gave me this book, when I was on my way back from India, and I read like half of it on the plane, and I reviewed it, again, because I read it about twice already, 2-3 times, and going through the book and all that, because there's so much information, watching videos on it and everything else. And what's kind of weird, too, is what happened in 1666, which could be tied into this, and we could talk about this later and get your comments on this before we get going. The Great Fire of London happened in 1666, supposedly started from a bakery, right? Burnt down everything you see here on the map, central London, burnt the area shown in pink, outlined in dashes, and it's crazy. And London the economy was booming in London. The city was getting huge and everything else, and this big fire took place. Then right after that, we had the Great Plague of London, the bubonic plague. So, and it ended in 1666. So could this all be tied into this? And which you'll understand this why later when we talk about it. So what's your thoughts on that, guys?
Go ahead, John.
Well, my thoughts on it are you're 100% on dead point. That fire in London. Some of the Puritans that wrote to the leadership at the time and basically said, this is your judgment, because they made it a rule in all churches in England that they had to subscribe to the doctrine of the English church, and that was the head of the church, and anything spoken against it, people were persecuted. The Puritans were persecuted, ran out of the churches, and this, I believe it was a result of that. And you're talking about the bubonic plague after that. I think that I've gone through Revelation. I've talked on Revelation 16 a lot and different stuff, and I believe that this was a fulfillment of prophecy of the fifth angel pouring out its vial upon the seat of the beast. And interestingly enough, this date when Sabbatai Zetti, which is this Antichrist figure that presented himself as the Messiah for the Jewish people, he did that on 1666. So if you count all those numbers together, they all equal to 666, right? So it's amazing how they use time periods, and this is huge in Lurian Kabbalah, which is what we're basically talking about here. Lurian Kabbalah is the use of all this, but I definitely believe they're connected, and I'll read Revelation 16:10 because me personally, and this is just my opinion, I believe we are in the sixth angel pouring out the vial. This is what we're getting ready to experience in Revelation chapter 16. But this is about the fifth angel, and I just want to read it real quick.
Sure.
And it says, "And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast." So he poured it out on the seat of the beast. So the people that were in charge of the beast system, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. And I believe that a lot of these plagues and stuff that happen to the people which are in London which I believe that is the seat of the beast, ultimately the power structure. The king of England actually holds the highest order over all the nations that will come together in the end time. So I believe this was one of those fulfillments of pouring out the vial on the seat of the beast. And it talks a little bit about what that means, but I definitely believe it's connected. I think that there's no doubt, and a lot of the history that we've learned, of course, has been smudged from the record. It's been kept from us. It's been hidden to a point to now things are starting to come out, and we're starting to see the right-handed path rise up, the white wizards, the light side of the wizardry come up, and we're starting to see what we're talking about here tonight, this side being exposed. And it's so interesting, man. There's so many moving parts to all of this. I don't even know where to start half the time. So
yeah, man. And again, the fire breaks out in 1666, and they just got done with this plague from 1665 through 1666. So London took a hit. So then emerges this so-called Messiah out of nowhere, claimed to be the Messiah. Sabatini Zavi claims to be the Messiah. The Messiah that's been prophesied by Scripture and all other, also the Kabbalah and Zohar and all the other stuff too.
Yeah, I think it's real quick just to point this out too. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to use Mr. Gates in the last few years. The whole 666 patent. With all you talked about that on Rumble channel and everything like that, and your New World Order Wednesday night broadcast. But the whole 666 thing came up during the whole last few years. So you got to think about it. It's kind of interesting how these numbers are, like John was saying, that it's very compelling.
Patent 666, HR 666.
Yeah, the next 666 year we have, if you think about it, is 6/6/2025. Because if you count the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's the number 9 is what 666 equals to. But that's the next big numerology year for these people that we have. And we all know the agenda coming up. We all know some of these agendas, but I don't know what's going to happen. But it's interesting, man. We're seeing so much stuff take place. Almost all of, I remember during the whole, and I don't even want to mention too much about it, but I remember a lot of the names for some of these variants. If for those of you who know what I'm talking about, they lined up with certain constellations, such as Omicron, for instance, and it lined up with dating. Like there was a certain date that they pronounced this Omicron. And at the same time, you had people that are trying to change from the WEF and from Davos and all of that, going to Antarctica in an icebreaker ship to view in the Serpent constellation, in the Serpent of Dan constellation, to view this. It is eclipse that had took place on that night, and they were hoping for a prophetic revelation through this, to see this new order take up. And I've been reading a lot of different stuff lately, but a lot of what we're seeing here, man, it really ties in with the externalization of the hierarchy, which is a book by Alice Bailey that explains exactly what's happening. In the first chapter, it just talks about the shift that's taking place, and it explains literally everything we're going through right now, like the shift of exposing tyranny, exposing the pedophiles, exposing all of these different things. And then there's going to be their side that comes through all of this. They call themselves I want to say the prophets of fire, something along those, the wizards of fire. I might as well be the wizards of fire, but they call themselves this. But Sabbatai Zeddy was he taught, and you've read this book, Dan, already, so you know exactly what I'm talking about here. But he taught redemption through sin, which he believed that through this form of Kabbalah, through this form, that they would do some of the worst, most heinous acts that I don't even want to mention, that make people blush to mention, including stuff like, family incest, pedophilia, all these different things that they would do, because they believed that by doing that, they were descending to save divine sparks that were lost in evil. And so they believe the more evil acts that they can attain, the more that they are going to be releasing these divine sparks to bring on the new age, to bring on everything. And, you know, of course, in all of these affiliations that they have, you have Sabbatai Zetti, and then you have Jacob Frank, which Frank was a disciple of Zevi. He brought Frankism in, and then Frankism this is where the Bavarian Illuminati started. They linked with Adam Weishaupt, then with Lord Mayor Rothschild, and the money was founded to form the Illuminati. So the Illuminati came from this movement, and you know, there's one of the things that I think is the most interesting about it that people need to really be aware of is the express intention of deceiving people about who they really are. Because Sabbatai Zetti, when he was, most of the main rabbis didn't accept Sabbatai Zetti, but 50% of the Jewish people actually did. They accepted his form of redemption through sin. They thought he was the Messiah. 50% of them followed him. Well, in Israel and in Jerusalem, they kicked him out of Jerusalem because he was a heretic, right? They kicked him out, the main rabbis, and he moved to Turkey. Well, in the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire, they told him that if he didn't convert to Islam, they were going to kill him. So he took on the road of Islam right away. He said, you know what, I'm converting to Islam. So whereas a lot of his followers were kind of disappointed in that, a lot of his followers took it as a sign that they should do the same thing. So a lot of them converted to Islam, but under a guise of Islam. And actually underneath that, they were still performing the rituals that are prominent in this Lurian Kabbalah to this day. Now, then there was another form of them, Marrano Jews, which were in Spain, which converted as to Christianity. Now, Christianity is actually the main form of conversion. They believe in order to be these Lurian Kabbalists, in order to create this divine spark, they have to work in the dark. And so they pretend to be Christians outwardly. Everything outwardly is the false, the opposite of what they do. And they took this lesson from Sabbatai Zetti to be able to hide themselves. And of course, we're with the Marrano Jews. This is where we have the Jesuits that pop up and all of this. So there's a really deep, dark connection with all this. And I believe this is the left-handed path, magnified, the cabal, if you will, magnified. They were the bankers. They still are the bankers. They are the ones who control the money purses. And they're the ones who ultimately control the beast at this point until they're taken down. Because in Revelation, we see that the Whore of Babylon is actually taken down by the beast itself. The dragon with the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The 10 horns hate, which are 10 kings, hate the whore. And so they take the whore that's riding this beast, they throw her off, and they burn her with fire, right? And then the Bible says they're doing God's will when they do this, because everybody's going to be happy, because they're going to see the cabal fall. They're going to see all these pedophiles get prosecuted. They're going to see this amazing thing happen. All these evil people. And I'm not saying they're not evil, because they are evil, but they're going to see all these evil people fall, and they're going to rejoice at that. And everybody's going to rejoice because you're going to see this falling. But then it says that the 10 kings actually give that power over to the dragon after that. So it's going to be a short period of time where people are rejoicing, happy, everything's good, but then there's going to be a power shift. There's going to be a great deception.
Yeah, and then go ahead, Dan.
No, I was going to say, like, when John was mentioning the Kabbalah, right, the Lurianic Kabbalah, come from this guy, rabbi at the time, Isaac Luria, right? He created this form of Kabbalah known as Lurianic Kabbalah, his version, basically, and it's the Jewish noble who developed Lurianic Kabbalah gives a, I'm trying to read this here, gave a renewal of account of Kabbalistic thought to his followers, as it was a synthesis he did, basically of Kabbalah and the Zohar. So anyway, and this is how evil Kabbalah is. So if you go to Albert Pike's book, Morals and Dogma, page 1871, it says the true name of Satan, that Kabbalists say, is Yahweh reversed. For Satan is not black God, but a negation God, sorry guys, I had to read to the screen, of God Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning, is he who bears the light, doubt it not. So, and as you go through the book, we, myself, John and David, recited this book many times over and clearly saying that they believe that Lucifer is God. You know what I mean? So this is their standing. This is what Kabbalah is about, guys. So I just want to let you know, because I know some people out there that think the Kabbalah is a good thing and everything else. No, these people, this is pure evil, guys. And, it goes right into these people we just mentioned, and Sabatini Zavi, and again, he converted to Islam in 1666. He ended up dying 10 years later. And then you had this Nathan of Gaza, who also spread this Sabatini belief here. And he's spreading all through Gaza and everything else. And then there was, which one I mentioned, the fifth monarchist too. It was an extreme sect of English Puritans, not regular Puritans, but extreme version of them, established in 1649, who believed that Jesus would return to rule the world in 1666. See, why is everything pointing to 1666 at the time, right? And they believed that Shabbat Zivi was the second coming of Jesus, and he would lead the Jews back to Judea, resulting in neither mass conversion of a fiery death. And they plotted to overthrow Charles II after his restoration, and was disdained even by Puritans, who incorrectly blamed them for the rise of Sabbatianism in the first place. And which leads to what John mentioned, Jacob Frank, right? He lived after Sabatini, that he claimed to be the resurrection of Sabatini. So basically, another Messiah, so to speak. So he claimed to be Sabatini Zavi resurrected as Jacob Frank. Yeah. So just want to catch you all up to date. So this makes sense to people that's tuning in and everything else. And so there, Jacob Frank asserted that God, the Creator, was different from the God who had revealed Himself to the Israelites. So basically, he's preaching another God. And he believed the biblical God was evil, and widely held in Gnostic circles. So again, you got to hear Gnostics a lot, Kabbalists stuff a lot, like New Age and Judaism, and mysticism. All this is all tied in together. So,
well, I was going to real quick just interject here, kind of go back on what John was talking about on the Omicron thing. Just kind of let the audience know there's a lot of people don't realize this. I love that John mentioned the Omicron, the eclipse, the whole ritualistic standpoint. Yep. The islands down there, even John, the variants. There's variant names of islands down there in Antarctica. No joke. And then you're talking about the 2025 narrative and that date being significant. We're talking about the 1666 narrative being significant, but the 2025, they're talking about the census of America and all these different countries are going to be a huge depopulation, like a big chunk of population going to be just vanishing by 2025 is what the census and all this. They was kind of giving some leeway. It was like 67 million for America. Now it's at 100. So they kind of rounded up to 100 million. But, the question is, where's all these people where are they going to go? Where's this disappearing? And then you get into the Antarctica Treaty and all the different things going on there. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, all these guys, they have islands named after them. And these variants are all in circumference in these areas. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, man. It's amazing, really. And, Rothschild owns an island there in Antarctica, which is interesting as well. But I know that, so when you look at this Lyrian Kabbalah, this is actually the most common form of Kabbalah. And some say it's the interpretation of the Zohar, etc. But what you have in the secret acts of these things are stuff that will blow your mind. It's disgusting things, really, really disgusting. And so I would suggest that if anybody runs into anybody who is actively studying or practicing Kabbalah, even if they pretend to be a Christian, I would be very careful about introducing myself or my family to these people, because they believe by doing evil that they're actually doing good. They're saving these divine sparks that need to take place for this time period. And when you look at there was a book, oh man, I cannot think of the name of the book right now, Tragedy and Hope by Quigley, and you look at what they talked about in there, and obviously Clinton was a big fan of Quigley, but they spell it out exactly what their plan is and how they plan on basically infiltrating everything, controlling everything. And for those of you that are awake, you guys know already, you've seen it. You've seen that there is a hand that is hidden that is ultimately in control of everything, right? There's people often want to complain about, presidents, Congress, Senate, but what I really would suggest to you, especially if you read this book and you understand how these things work, those are all it's all puppets. They're all a game. None of it's really real. All of these senators, all of these congressmen, all of these people, it's a show to kind of keep you pacifist, right? It's a show to kind of keep you, well, there's people out there and they're voting for you. You've elected these people and they're in the process, and this process works. And I hate to say this because a lot of people really believe that this is the case, but I'm telling you, it's no different than WWE. It's no different than I don't know how old some of you guys are. I know Dan's a wrestling fan, but you remember when NWO was they were the bad, like there was the Shills, right? There was the Shills, and you have this horrible, these fights going on, and you get to a point to where you can't stand the evil is just so bad. You got all these bad guys that are constantly winning matches, and they're spitting in your face, telling you're a bunch of scabs out there, listening. And then you have somebody like Hulk Hogan that just rises up, shaking his fist, yeah. And you have the hero, right? This is what Albert Pike Albert Pike said this. He said, if they need a hero, we'll give them a hero. And we're seeing this play out right in front of our face. We're seeing the Hegelian dialectic, two sides. Unfortunately, what's happening through a lot of this stuff, man, these people have become so good at hiding in the dark. And now they're being exposed. They're being exposed for what they are, and that's part of the agenda. The agenda is to expose these people, and so we're doing actually portraying part of the agenda, which is actually God's agenda for all these people to be exposed. But at the same time, when the story flips, we have to be aware that yes, they're being exposed, and yes, it's a good thing they're being exposed. But the hypeness behind the people doing it is no different than being hype about the right-handed path and about white wizards. It's no different because these people that are actually exposing these are only the ones that they're not the only people exposing it. There's been people exposing it for a long time. But they, media attention goes to those who are part of the big show. Our shows, we've been like me and you, being like places like InfoWars and everything else. We all been exposing this for a while. And like John said, we don't get the notoriety because we're not mainstream media, So with the stuff we come out and it comes out years later that we are right about stuff, and we don't want to be right about this garbage, but when somebody comes out and makes a film that's a Hollywood person, and these people are insiders, you know what I mean? And so, and I'm not saying that that movie, The Sound of Freedom, doesn't have a lot of truth in it. It does. They purposely like to put truth out, but they're hiding so much other stuff. We could get into that some other time. But so with this, directing back to the 1666, and I want to point this out because everything today, okay, we're mentioning now and all that, everything today from the big banks to the secret societies all stem back to this these events. I'm sorry, I can't get that out of my tongue. These events, okay, that stemmed from this whole 1666 movement, right? So basically, this is the book here, 1666 Redemption Through Sin, page 66. Not a coincidence, huh? Through the infiltration, stealth, and cunning, this invisible network has come to rule us all, literally. And 41 years after Shabatini Zavi's death in 1717, they would infiltrate Masonry guilds in England and establish, because it was called the Mother Lodge then, and they established what's known now as Freemasonry, right? And Jacob Frank would have a great impact on the inner core of Freemasonry, known as the Illuminati. And if you guys have been following us, we all know we preach that what happened, the Illuminati came out of Freemasonry. Well, they were established in 1776 and before that as well. But long story short, in the Council of Wilhelmsbad, I think it was 1785, they merged together in the council, right, in the Congress, and all the secret societies, the Knights Templar, the Druids, the Jacobins, the Illuminati, all these, so-called secret societies that supposedly died off or went underground, they all merged together in a secret society and hid within the ranks, the lower ranks, the Blue Lodge of Freemasonry, so nobody would even suspect them, right? So anyway, they would infiltrate Masonry guilds and establish Freemasonry. And again, this guy was Zavi's successor, Jacob Frank, would have a great impact on the inner core of Freemasonry, known as the Illuminati, formed in 1776, and Freemasonry would become the hidden force behind the events like the Americas, French, and the revolutions and everything with the French, America, Russia, and all that stuff. They're the ones who will stage these events, right? And the creations of the United Nations and Israel. Wait till we get to this stuff, guys. The state of Israel, the country right now of Israel, right?
Wait, this was the Balfour treaty they had. Wait till you get to the stuff, man. And this was literally created by the Rothschild, the country of Israel, right? We're going to get to that later on, but all the stuff come out of this. And, it's right there. You know what I mean? The assassination of the Kennedy brothers who worked together with the father to thwart efforts of the network on the American soil. And this goes on. I mean, it's a cult of the All-Seeing for sure. And basically all the secret societies, all the scandals going on, all the inner cores of the elite all come from this stuff, yeah. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, man. And Freemasonry, unfortunately, for a lot of the people in it, they have no idea what they're involved in.
Nope.
Albert Pike in that Morals and Dogma said that they conceal from the lower levels of Freemasonry the truth about it. They make them believe that they understand the truth, but they conceal it.
And Manly P. Hall too. Yep, he said the same thing.
Yeah, and the saying, the whole old saying is all Illuminati are Freemasons, but not all Freemasons are Illuminati. And they've found that the Freemasons are the perfect group to hide with them because they have judges, policemen, all orders of different people involved in that, and they're all under oath to protect each other. So they have a perfect hiding place within the lodge. And they only let people at higher levels that they can discern that are just like them. They'll have you in Freemasonry for a long time. Some people spend Freemasonry their entire lives and never make it to the 33rd degree. Some people get to the 33rd degree very quickly. Some people don't even have to be a member of Freemasonry, and they ended up getting their honorary 33rd degree. And why is that? Because they understand the mysteries, is one. For two, they have that evil streak to where they don't mind sacrificing a man. And this is where these people thrive in evil acts like this, right in the middle, plain sight, but also hidden. And it's just amazing to me, man, that the Freemasons, I would be mad if it was me and I was a Freemason and I realized I read Albert Pike's book and said that the real meanings are hidden from me. What am I paying my dues for? What am I joining this brotherhood for if all the real meanings are hidden from me and I just get this watered down occult version of what's real?
Exactly. Yeah. Then also the Oddfellows too, John and Dan. The Oddfellows behind them also. So it's like
one of
it's amazing. It's amazing how this has all been going on forever. So
yep. And John Robison's book, Proofs of a Conspiracy, he even talks about he had connections with Adam Weishaupt. I mean, he obtained a lot of his records and all that too. But Proofs of a Conspiracy, he talks about how when Freemasonry, that Council of Wilhelmsbad, right? It was a Congress of Wilhelmsbad, I'm sorry, that when it happened, they merged all these secret societies together, and they literally said that everybody was well aware of Freemasonry. They expected a little of it, and that's why it was a perfect concealment place to hide within the ranks, the inner circle of Freemasonry, so people would not suspect it. You know what I mean? So, because the thing is, the public knew about Freemasonry. They're like, yeah, whatever, they're right. You know what I mean? They do no harm. So they hid within the Blue Lodge, the first 3 degrees, and within the inner circles that, again, John said that most Masons had no clue at all about the Illuminati even existing. You know what I mean? So that's where they hid, and they had to hide for a while because they were being hunted down and everything else. Damn the Knights Templar. We could go on forever, but all this came out of this whole ordeal with this Kabbalism and everything else. And
yeah, man, the Synagogue of Satan is very prominent in this, and it's interesting too because the towns where this Illyrian Kabbalah started is actually mentioned as in Revelation, and it talks about the Jews who say they're Jews but they're not, but they're the Synagogue of Satan. It mentions that exact town where all of this transpired in there, and it's just pretty amazing to me that it's encoded in here for us to see exactly who it is. I think the biggest issue and the reason that I even like talking about this mainly is because there are people, believe it or not, for those of you who are in the church, for those of you who are involved in Islam, for those of you who are involved in whatever you're involved in, there is an element within your mainstream organizations and almost every organization at this point that these people are involved in. In fact, this hidden hand is kind of like the Order of the Owls in Batman. Do you remember that? I don't know if you guys ever watched Batman, but the Order of the Owls were this order. They saw everything. They controlled everything, but nobody even knew who they were. The people that were in control of the town had no idea that these people were controlling things because they're interjected themselves in every single life, every single power structure, religious power structure, monetary power structure, etc., and they inserted themselves into this. Now, Weishaupt and Frank and all of these people, Weishaupt brought just a wealth of information in that manner because he was a Jesuit and he was in charge of helping create this structure. And so what he brought to the Illuminati was the structure of Jesuits to be able to infiltrate and continue to get involved in every single aspect of life. Now, they're already printing money. They're already doing that, which, Rothschild said, I don't care who makes the laws. Let me print the money. That's all I care about, because as money talks. Money is the thing that controls everything. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So these people control the money. They get involved. I mean, I don't know about you, Dan, but I've been, we've had people try to infiltrate our organization for a very long time. And a lot of time, most of the time that it's actually taken place where we've had people infiltrate that we've had to remove from our stuff is people that you would never suspect, people that you never thought were anything involved in this. And then next thing you know, you find out, wow, this person's actually doing this stuff behind closed doors. They're so good at concealing. They're actors, they're concealing, maybe even MK Ultra, maybe even mind controlled to a point, if they grew up in this, then they've experienced some very horrific acts probably on them as a child to the point to where they may be split personalities and not even realize who they are, but they have these two sides that are very opposed to each other. Let's just put it that way. Very opposed, light and dark, full force, both sides.
Yeah. And so, and I apologize, guys, if we sound like we're all over the place, guys, because you got to understand what we're trying to do is like simplify, because just on Sabatini Zavi, we could do a whole show on its own. You know what I mean? And what we're trying to do is make the connections, like John said at the beginning of the show, those little pieces of the puzzle. What we're trying to do is quickly connect them so everything makes sense. It's what's going on. That's what we're trying to do.
I don't think we're all over the place anyway. I think we're just discussing this thing, and I know some people can't follow sometimes, or they don't understand what we're talking about. But we're talking the truth here. We're just discussing it in a way that really makes sense and matters, because the book's out there for you to read. Dan told you the book 1666, Redemption Through Sin, written by Robert Sapar, which is not a Christian guy, but he is actually an anthropologist who studies these things, did a great job, great expose on these things. But what we're trying to do, like Dan says, we're trying to expose this stuff in a way that you're going to be able to see, because right now, this hidden hand is getting exposed in front of your face, guys. It's getting right and exposed. And unless you understand what's going on, and unless you understand how deep this stuff is and how it's connected to the Illuminati, it's deeply connected. Freemasonry, deeply connected. Catholicism, deeply connected. Islam, deeply connected. Everything that we're talking about here, this stuff that we're talking about, is deeply connected. Now, the world, the Christian mainstream church, would have you believe that this is all, this is none of this happening, but they are the ones that are the most infected with this evil, demonic attitude. Because, look, when the world can sit there and smash Jesus over and over again, nobody cares about that. Nobody, even AI, can smash Jesus, but they won't talk about all these other things. This should prove to you that there is an active group of people who control the world that want to destroy these people. And if we don't expose these things, well, we have been exposing them things for 10 years now. People want to say, oh, you guys are against these people trying to do some light. No, we've been doing the same thing. Like, I know one person who has taken down more pedophiles than Tim Ballard, but he'll never get publicized because he's a Christian, and because that's not the agenda, right, for him to be publicized. But he's taken down more people than that in his career. And it's amazing to me that people think, oh, these people popping up are doing this. But look, we're connecting all of this stuff on purpose, because there's a purposeful goal to get you guys and to get us and all of us to get hyped up about this coming light. And unless we can understand, like, the division of the darkness and the light, it's going to be really hard to decipher what's going on here, because there is a division here. Like, when they say, oh, there's a good side and bad side of the Kabbalah, what they're saying is actually true. Now, when I say good, I mean it in good in terms of like white magic versus black magic, or New Age versus Satanism, right? There's this thing, but we're talking about the satanic path here that really controls way more than you understand. They control borders. They control all of these pedophile rings that are going on, and they are having your lunch right now because they own all of these propaganda systems. They're having your lunch, they're eating it, and there's nothing anybody can do about it unless they understand it. So we may seem scattered around. We're not going like point by point through the entire book, but what we're doing here is just really, truly trying to help people that don't see this expose it, because we could talk deep about this. I mean, you could talk about this stuff as deep as you want, as horrific as you want to get into it, but ultimately, unless people's eyes are peeled to this, unless they're able to see things at the very bare minimum, the tip of the iceberg things of it, they're not going to see the rest of it either. So we want to discuss all different random aspects of it. And I think, honestly, Dan, I think you've done a good job of like putting together points, throwing the points together so that we can discuss along those lines.
Yeah, thanks, man. And so, yeah, I just wanted to point that out in case anybody thought we were all over the place. But we're not. You know, I mean, we're try to simplify everything together because each one of these things we have done shows on this. So as John's done a million shows on each one of these topics individually. So that's why we're just trying to give you a little bit of the meat and potatoes of 1666, how it ties into the Rothschild, Jacob Frank, the Rothschild with the Illuminati and everything else, and to today's world, the big banking cartels and to all the secret societies around today. So that's we try to give you the gist of the New World Order. You know what I mean? And where it stems from and their beliefs and everything else. And once you understand their beliefs, once you understand their psychology, you not like predict, but you know what they're going to do. You know the enemy very well because the Bible says in Ephesians, right, to know your enemy and expose it. You know, so that's what we do. That's all of us who hear this shows, right? We study the enemy, and it's like the military. You can't go to war. How do you got to go to war if you don't have no detailed information or recon on the enemy? You know, that's what this is, biblical spiritual warfare. We need to have that recon, this intel information on what the enemy is doing. And this way we know what they're going to do. This way we have the ability to warn others of what's going to happen. You know what I mean? And then John was saying, in our own Christian churches today, they've infiltrated. They have completely dumbed down the massive churches today, you know, and all religions. So that's where we take remove the religion out of this whole thing and just bring in strictly the Bible. You know what I mean? To bring the word of truth in, and that's what we do here.
Yeah, Ephesians 6 verse 12 is where I'm at right now. Just listening to you talk, both of you talk back and forth. Ephesians 6 verse 12, and that's where we are in 2023. There's so much things coming at us, inundated, all kinds of media, all kinds of narratives, and like John said, the broadened path. There's all these things are still leading to the broadened path. It narrow is the way. All these things are directing us to the broadened path. It's all these wizards are working for the same agenda. It's pretty scary, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
looks like the fire's going through you, Brian.
Say it again.
And I was laughing because the backdrop there looks like the fire's going right through you.
Oh, that's fine. I'm getting refined, man. I'm getting refined in the flame here. Yeah. So.
Yeah. One thing too, like that I think is important to point out so people can kind of spot these people. Possibly this is one area that they do control. This is the whole point of mixing Frankism and the Bavarian Illuminati, because Rothschild had the strings, Weishaupt had the brains to be able to pull off a operation like this, to be able to pull it off to where you can organize all the spider webs. And Frank had the religion, right? So all of these things combined. So what you're going to find most of the time in these people, you're going to see that they control the purse strings. So if you're in a part of a church, find out who controls the purse strings of the church. There's always one guy that donates the most out of anything. You'll find him on the board, and you'll see who has the sway in these churches. And right there is a key sign that person may be involved with this, because their money is unlimited. I've seen it happen. My father was a minister, and I grew up and going to different churches a lot. We went from different churches. My father would minister at one church, and then we go to a different one. We moved a bunch of times. So what I saw as a common thread in all of these churches, and the reason I even knew about it as a child is my dad would talk about it. There's always that one person that wants to hold things down, wants to hold things back, and they're the ones that supply the money for the pastor to have the place, for the building, for everything. They supply that money system, and they are the ones who control the purse strings. So looking for people who control this purse strings is very important. Knowing their fruits. being a part of a fellowship is a big deal, right? It's an awesome thing for a lot of people. They're like, man, I really want to be a part of a fellowship. I want to be a part of this. But one of the key aspects you need to look for is the fruits of the Spirit. Do they have the fruits of the Spirit? Or does that fellowship have the fruits of the flesh? Are there more arguing going on? Is there more dissension going on? Is there more gossiping going on in that thing? Is there more immorality going on inside that fellowship? Is it constantly arguing, constantly jealousy, constantly envy, all these different things going on within that fellowship? If so, there is about a 99% chance that you have one of these people involved within this fellowship. And they do this on purpose. They travel land and sea. The Bible says they travel land and sea to make a convert to be twice as more of a hellion or whatever. I'm paraphrasing than they are, right? They'll go all over the place looking for these people to bring into this, and they'll join and infiltrate so many different things, man. The Hebrew Roots movement was rife with these people, just rife. And we found one of the guys we had on our show. Right after we on our show, I'd look him up and real closely start studying him. And guess what? The guy owns a head shop in Louisville, and he's also a Kabbalist, and he's also a Jesuit. He went to Jesuit school, Jesuit trained, and he's like a key figure within this Hebrew Roots movement. So it was like they latched onto that right away because they saw, oh, there's people coming out of the mainstream church. They're seeing that this is all bullcrap. Oh no! Well, we gotta create controlled opposition within this opposition, because that's the only way that they can control things is controlled opposition. And this hidden hand is so good at it. And I really can't stress that enough, that people have to look at the fruits of people. Who cares what they say? Anybody can say anything. You can sound like the best guy in the world on internet or even in person, but when you can look at the fruits of what they're doing, then that's a whole different story. You can say the most holy words. You can move. The Bible says you can move crowds, give your body to be burnt, all of these different things. But if you don't have love, it profits you nothing, right? There's this fruit that they will not have, and I've seen it so many times, and it's really scary to see that they're actually honing in on groups like ours. They're honing in because they can't have a sect of people that aren't controlled by them. That's how deep these organizations are. And when you realize their connection with the Illuminati, which a lot of people think Illuminati is this or that, whatever, you can think whatever you want. The Illuminati is real. The Illuminati has had the purse strings for a long time, and they've infiltrated every aspect of every secret society that you can think of. And man, oh man, it's a web of lies. But knowing certain signs, being able to see that not everybody's as they seem. We've been naive for too long. Too long have Americans been naive. Well, they say some good things. They've done some good stuff. At least they're doing something about it, when not knowing that there's other people doing stuff about it too. At least they're doing something. But deep down, they're evil. The Bible talks about the Pharisees. They're outside, they're whitewashed. But inside, they're just dead man's bones. This is what these people are. They're dead man's bones, walking around as angels of light, man. And we got to be aware.
Yep. Yeah, that's well, all three of us on this panel, me and Dan discussed it one time live on just a few shows back. There's somebody literally making a documentary about us trying to expose us and say that we are Masons. So it's
oh yeah, yelling it too, John. Yeah,
you're in it too, John. John Hall's in it, David's in it, and all of us on this panel. It's pitiful. So everything you just said, John, is what this person is doing, and they're just up to nefarious things. They're wasting their time.
Valerie knows him. If you want to put his name in the chat, go for it, Valerie. And by the way, thank you to my moderators.
I'd like to know who it is. I'd like to know who it is, and we have people like this is one of their a great way to do things is they like to slander people. Oh, this person's a cult. This is a cult. This is a bad. Don't listen to them. Have you seen those guys? Those guys are, oh my goodness, like trying to confirm everything that whatever they can find. And man, slander is like a form of murder, because if I go around and I say, oh man, Brian and Dan, they are sacrificing chickens behind closed doors. I saw it with my own eyes. Now, whether or not it's believe it or not, there's going to be a certain amount of people that believe what I say and will never listen to you again. They'll never listen to you again because they believed what I said. Now, these are the kind of people that we're talking about, people that gain notoriety and then talk smack about people, and people believe it. People believe everything. They always want to see the hero fall, right? The hero. When the hero is brought down, oh man, they love it. They love it. The same people that cheered on your way up are the same people that are going to cheer on your way down, right? This is the way it works. But we have to quit being naive. Naivety is not wisdom. It's foolishness. It's plain foolishness. The Bible says there's none good, not one. But the world will say people are ultimately good. Absolutely not. You have to quit being naive and see that in 2023, not everything is as it seems. Not even when it comes to the gender. We have to look, man. Wake up.
Yep, exactly. And so touching more on the Illuminati, man, and I just want to read a couple of passages from the book also, but the book 1666, he's also making reference from Dr. Henry Markow's book called The Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. So it says that the Kabbalah is the keystone of all Western occult throughout in practice today, and the cornerstone of the belief of the illuminated ones, which is the masters of the Illuminati, and hostile to the non-Kabbalistic Jews, right? And he goes on to say that most Jews are unaware of the Illuminati agenda, and they, just like everybody else, they are manipulated and compromised like everyone else, and the Illuminati hides behind the skirts of ordinary Jews. The cult that hijacked the world is a tiny nucleus of Kabbalistic Kabbalistic bankers and Masons based in London and directed by the House of Rothschild, and Judaism has been hijacked. And original Judaism was based on Moses' vision of God as a universal moral force. And it goes on to what we talked about earlier today. And also he says here, today, British, American, and Zionist imperialism manifest a banker agenda for the world government through the destruction of religion, nation, race, family, and the imperialism does not express the interest of the wishes of ordinary English, American or Jewish people who are being colonized themselves. The Rockefeller and Morgan empires are part of the central banking cartel at the highest level, and the intelligence agencies like MI6, CIA, Mossad, and KGB answer to the cartel, not to the national government. And real quick here, I made this this is from Edith Starr Miller on her book from 1933, Occult Theocracy, and also the same things that Doc Marquis taught me too. These are the priorities of the Illuminati, right? And their goal is a communist New World Order and the destruction of Christianity, monarchies, nation states in favor of the world government for internationalism, the abolition of family ties and marriage. In other words, traditional family, they want to abolish it. You've seen that going on today by the means of promoting homosexuality and promiscuity, and at the end of inheritance of private property, do away with private inheritance at all, and they don't want you owning private property, and the suppression of collective identity in the spurious name of universal human brotherhood, i.e. diversity. And tell me that's not going on today, guys. And if you think that's not going on today, you're living under a rock, because that's exactly what they're doing today, guys. And they want to diminish private property. They're destroying the family, literally, with all this rainbow crap going on, and the drags and the libraries. I could go on forever with this stuff. And so this was back in 1933. So if you're going to tell me, this is made up, okay? This is exactly everything that's going on today that these people have been warning us for generations. Insiders, people like ourselves who've uncovered this information, got called lunatics, conspiracy theorists, and everything else they do at us. They do that to us all the time, guys. They do that to me, John, Brian, David, all of us. You know what I mean? But in the end, the people end up, oh wow, they were right, and it's not us being right. It's we're just trying to reveal the information that's been disseminated to us by the Holy Spirit and through the Word of God to know the enemy and know what they're doing to try to give this information out. And like I said, John said too, the Illuminati, they're running the whole show today, guys. And it's the World Banking Cartel and everything else. They're controlling all the major religions, the whole ecumenical movement system with the Pope and everything else, the United Nations, our government, literally, especially our government, they're controlling them. They put the positions in power. That's why you'll see, right, in the presidential election, right, come next year, right, you'll never see an independent or a libertarian or third-party candidate ever get anything. Because here's the thing, right? If I was to run for president right now, right, just say I got 100 million votes, right? It would be a historic high, right? It wouldn't matter because the Electoral College votes, right, they're not going to put their votes on me. I could have 100 million votes easily, right? Outnumbering both candidates together, right? But the Electoral College, right, they will never cast their votes upon a third-party candidate. It's always got to be the top Democrat, top Republican. That's how they own the system. You know, and then that this George Washington even warned us about this system too. That he's seen the whole thing unfold all over Europe, creating a two-party system, backed by the banks, backed by this whole Illuminati Kabbalistic system, right? And people at the top, right, that come in. You got the Obamas, Trump, then you got Biden, and who probably Trump again. Who knows the way things are going? And it's all controlled. It's an all controlled system, and it's all to play with you. Every time the American public's on the verge of a revolution, right, they always put a person who appeases to them to quell down the revolution. Well, Hillary Clinton, everybody thought she was going to get elected, right? They put Trump in, right? Completely, everybody kicked their feet up. We're in a safe space, and I've seen all these patriots do it, right? And at the same time, we're still getting gun control. We've lost major rights, and people don't realize, even under Trump, the red flag laws, the bump stock thing, and all in his administration. You know what I mean? So no matter who you vote for, guys, it's the same cabal that's running the show. The right-wing, left-wing paradigm.
Well, every time a civilization starts debating over gender,
yep,
and the debating of that, and then that starts falling, then all of a sudden, poof, the civilization disappears. So when it's some type of strange, it's just very strange. I mean, you can go, and people don't understand it. Like everything you just said was legit, and people don't understand how we're on the cusp of that happening into this country, and the depravity is really sick. You can see it. You can just go out in public, you can see the depravity of our nation. And like I said, when the gender thing starts going down and falling down by the wayside, boom, civilization starts vanishing off the face of the earth. So it's wild stuff. Wild stuff.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, guys, it's our fault. Not maybe not us like in particular, but you can have the best person. You could put Dan in the president's seat right now. Dan might be the best candidate for the job, and I believe that Dan wouldn't corrupt himself or anything like that. But I can tell you this right now, that he's not going to have any sway. And unfortunately, because these people are the kind of people that can use technology against you to make you crazy. These are the kind of people that can find you when you don't want to be found, and can make your head be like, they can look like a broken watermelon. They're the kind of people that do not have any regard for human life, that will take your family's life. And so if you think Trump is willing to give away all his riches, give away all his notoriety to fight against something that you voted for him to fight against, then you got another thing coming. It doesn't matter who wins the elections. The elections don't even matter at all. Like, no. I can't say that enough. It doesn't matter who wins. It does not matter who wins. The agenda is always the agenda. The controllers are always the controllers. That's why they only have a two-party system. Maybe you can vote libertarian or do whatever, but you only have two-party systems. And the only people that have ever been voted in as presidencies have been descendants of a royal lineage, and they're all related somehow. I mean, I don't know how much that has to happen for people to realize that the system's been rigged. And you talked about them, every time there's a real revolution come along, they come in and stifle. It's the same with the move of God. Anytime there's a real move of God coming, they stifle that as well. And the only solution to all this, you can't go around. You can go out and kill all the bad people. Not going to help. The bad people are going to keep popping up, because you can't kill all the bad people. You don't even know who all they are. You can't kill all those people. You can't kill all the ones that are bad in power. And if you do, there's people ready to step right up next to them, because the whole world's reprobates, and they're ready to take the money. They're like, let me get the money. I'll go up there and set up in power. This is what's going to happen. The only solution, and these people know this, these evil secret society people, they know the only solution is repentance and turning to the Most High God. And the majority of people are not willing to do what it takes to do that. And that's just real basic science. The majority of people are not willing to do that. God does not care if our leader's righteous or not. God cares if the people are righteous. That is how this is how kings get set up. They get set up based on what the people need, what they want to have. Remember when Nebuchadnezzar was called a servant of God, yet he's the one who enslaved God's people. How is that possible for him to be a servant of God and to enslave God's people, right? How is that possible? Yeah. How is it possible for Assyria to be called the right hand of God, to be able to go cast judgment on people? Why is that? Because God uses these people to judge his people, and we're at the point of judgment. That we've gone a long way from 1600. 1600 was before 1776, and I know some people would not agree with me, and that's fine if you don't. I know Dan may not agree with me or whatever. 1776 was a move of the Illuminati. There was a nation before 1776, but then you have people like George Washington, who bears the symbols of Baal right there in Washington, who bears the biggest phallic symbol other than the ones in the Vatican and London. The biggest symbol right there.
Oh yeah, 555 feet tall. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many connections to the beast just in George Washington. So when we talk about our founding fathers did this and that, our founding fathers knew what they were doing. See, they set it up as a free system, which is great, and only works, according to John Adam, if the people are moral. The people are not moral. Guess what? The Constitution does not work on people who are not moral. It will not work. People are not ready to do what it takes to keep that going. Communism could be a great thing if everybody was moral and everybody did what they were supposed to do instead of being lazy, and instead of being corrupt people at the top trying to stifle all the money from the people that are actually working. Communism could work. Everybody does their part, pitches in, everybody lives well, only if people were moral. Not happening.
Yeah.
Dictatorships, all of that. Look, without people being moral, it doesn't matter what kind of government you have. You can have the best people for the job in there, and I promise you, it ain't going to matter unless the people decide to repent. Because you see it in Israel, they had a good king. A good king would come up, kill all these people, and then the people were evil. Oliver Cromwell, the Puritan, when the Puritans were getting persecuted and thrown out of the country and all that, Oliver Cromwell became a Christian, and he decided he's going to take it into his own hands. They ended up killing the king. Right, they ended up killing King Edward, and yet when he went to take over, they said, "Look, you can have the king. We want you to be king, Oliver Cromwell." And he said, "I'm not going to be king. The people of England do not want to be pure. Therefore, they do not need me as a king. They don't need people. You know, this is the thing. The people have to be ready to be pure." And now, as a small group of the people that we're talking to tonight, this is our job. To be pure, to do the right things, because that's the only salvation you're going to have. There's no corporate salvation for America. And I hate to throw that out there. People always say, oh, well, you know, we want to defend America. We want America. Why? America has slayed the innocent for years. They've sent our children off to war and died for unrighteous causes, slaughtered Christians all over the world, slaughtered people, random people, innocent people, drug wars. All of these things are a result of the country we live in. So when people say we need to defend our country, against what? Why? Against God? Because God's the one bringing judgment on our country. It's not anything else. That's what it says in the book of Kings when it talks about Balaam and Balak. They're not, you know, he's in Revelation. It tells us what happened there. He went to curse the people. He went over and over again. It couldn't happen. Only blessings came out of his mouth. And then he said there's no curse against Israel. And the only thing that people are going to say is, what has God wrought of this country? That's what people are going to say about America. What has God done to this country? Because we become Greece. We become the evil wickedness that we've so taught about all these years. And I know I'm on a rant here.
Oh, go for it.
Pissing a lot of people off, but I just have to say.
Oh, you're right, man. And speaking of Israel and all that, so I want to point real quick before I get to the next topic here from this book. Basically, how did Israel become a nation again, right? So this is all connected through here, right? But anyway, May Amschel Rothschild, right? He was a financial back of the Illuminati, as we just discussed, right? And basically, he had his paws in Freemasonry and the Knights Templar and Skull and Bones 322 and all that, all these secret societies. And I want to point this out real quick. The reason why, because a lot of people ask, where's 322 come from? Because it was an order from descendant of Greek, it's hard to read this, a fraternal society back to the Demoshachs of 322 BC. So they believe this society was actually formed in 322 BC. That's why it's called Skull and Bones 322, which is currently resides at Yale University, where the top elite, like the Bushes and people like them, go to, right? So hang on one second, let me get to my second set of slides. And so now we talk about the country Israel, right? Me and John here, right? Me and John, we've both done the shows together on exposing the star. So for the sake of it, long story short, it is the Star of Moloch. There's no such thing as a Star of David. Plain and simple. Amos 5:26, Acts 7:43. Do the research. So basically, that's not the Star of David. David never had a star. That is called. This is a Kabbalah star. And the seal of Solomon. You know what I mean? It's evil as it comes. Plain and simple. So how did Israel become a nation again. People think, oh, well, God's seeing it through. It's like, no, this is, so, I didn't learn this until like recently myself about this Balfour treaty, right? And it was Palestine for the Jews. So basically, this was the official letter, the Balfour Declaration, right? So basically, during World War I, right, the United States wasn't involved at all, right? They actually loved Hitler, by the way, the United States of America. Our presidents loved Hitler and the German Nazis, right? They didn't want to get involved with World War I, right? So England was about to throw the white flag, and we're done, because Germany said, if you guys surrender, we'll call it quits. We'll, go back the way it was, right? So the Rothschild came to England, right, to say, the leaders there, so listen, here's what we're going to do, right? We'll get the United States involved in this war. You don't have to surrender. We'll get them involved in the war to help you win this war. But in return, you got to give us part of Palestine to send all the Jews there, right? To create the Palestinian state of Israel, right? So this is what happened, right? They sent this declaration out. And it's from, Dear Lord Rothschild. Let me see if I can read this here. It's long story short, I'm going to narrate it down. So anyway, it was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War, announcing its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. So yes, what the heck has this got to do with World War I? Nothing, right? And how does England get to decide to take Palestine territory and give it to Jewish people? They don't have the power to do that, right? But this is what the Rothschild told them. It's like, yeah, we'll help you guys win the war, get the United States involved with, you guys, right? Now, here in America, the media was all pro-Germany, right? Instantly, when they agreed to this, right, Rothschild pulled their strings here in America. Instantly, overnight, right, the media all of a sudden turned anti-Germany. And all this propaganda against the German people, the Nazis, instantly, pro-Nazis to, anti-Nazis overnight, right? And all of a sudden it got the United States involved in the war. We need to go liberate, the UK and all this stuff from the evil Nazis. And yes, they were evil, nobody's saying they're not. And it got them involved in the war, and eventually we won the war, right? So what happened was, when it was done, from the Balfour Declaration, and I don't know what authority they had to do this, but London says, you know what? We're going to make the real estate they have now in Israel, we're going to make that a home for the Jews, right? And it was a Rothschild plan, because remember we brought up Sabatini Zevi, right? It was his plan to establish another Israel, right? It was his plan. This was continuation through the Rothschild and all that stuff to make this happen, right? So this guy who claimed to be the Messiah, then a resurrection, so-called through Jacob Frank, right, to be the Messiah, working with the Amschel Rothschild and all that, and the family eventually created the state of Israel, right? And that's where Israel, the country, came from, right? And now people say, well, we need to support Israel because the Bible says so. Like David pointed out, he's talking about spiritual Israel. We are part of that Israel, right? Not the nation Israel. We're part of God's Israel. It's a big difference between the thing. And so this is where Israel came from. You know what I mean? And that's, to move the Jewish population. And what they would do is sick too. They would purposely, and then, you talk about the Holocaust and all that. It was done purposely because the Jews didn't want to move back to Israel. They didn't feel safe there, right? I'm sorry, to the Palestinian area that's their Israel now. They didn't want to move there. So when the Jews were being killed off, right, Hitler asked FDR if he wanted the Jews in World War II, right? And it's like, no, we don't want them, And so there was like they were doing these major Holocausts in Germany and Russia and all that. It was being done purposely to scare the Jews so they would go back to Israel, because it was a Rothschild's plan to get all the Jews that were scattered all over the world all back to the land of what's now known as Israel, to form this nation called Israel, right? And it's all part of the end times with, the third temple and all that. This is all to do with bringing forth the Antichrist and the one world system. Ruled by, and again, we got to specify real quick here, we are not talking about regular Jewish people. If you are a regular Jewish people, God bless you. We are talking about Revelation chapter 2 and 3 that John mentioned, the fake Jews, which are the Zionists. And they also created the ADL here in America, by the way. They are the ones who funded it. Because anybody that brought the stuff up, like back in the day, was Tex Mars, right? You would be labeled as
Mm-hmm.
anti-Semitic automatically. You're anti-Jew when we're actually not anti-Jew, or we're going against the fake Jews, right? And so they would call people like us anti-Semitic, because we're exposing the fake Jews within the Jewish system. And that country we call Israel, guys, that's Rothschild country. It's and it's all came from the Balfour Declaration and all from the Rothschild. And if you want to elaborate on that, John, I know you got some information on that.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons they had to control the Temple Mount, and what people don't understand, they're like, how can that even be possible? Right now, the Muslims are there. Look, the Muslims play a big role in all of this, a huge role, bigger than you think. See, the Messiah who comes, the new Messiah, I guess you could call it, the false Messiah, will fulfill the roles of a Muslim Messiah, will fill the roles of a Jewish Messiah, will fill the roles of a Hindu Messiah, whatever. They will fulfill this Maitreya, I guess is who it is.
Yeah.
They will fulfill these roles to the T. In order for them to do what 2 Thessalonians 2:4 talks about, where it says he exalts himself, he opposes the Most High, he sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. In order for them to not only do that, but that's just one of the aspects of it. Another aspect is control. They know that if they can show that they are in control of this area, that big amounts of money will be moved their way. Big amounts of support will be moved their way. They believe that they're supposed to, these evil Jews, they believe, and I don't even really want to call them Jews because the Bible says that they say they are, but they're not. So I don't think they are. But they want to get your money. They want to control you. They want to you to worship them and be their slaves eventually. This is all part of the Talmud. This is all part of the Kabbalah. They believe that Gentiles are supposed to be their slaves. And this is exactly the game plan that they've done. They understand how history's been manipulated because they're probably the ones that have done it. They understand how that works. And so being able to foment wars in order to gain what they want to get is something they've been doing for a long time. They're really, really good at it. They're so good at it. And you hit on something really important about Jews and who the Jews are. In the book of Romans and I believe in Galatians, it talks about, Paul says that we've been grafted in to the tree, right? That the root and all of that, the tree itself is our king, and we've been grafted into that. And I don't know how many of you guys produce fruit trees, but the interesting thing about fruit trees is you can graft stuff into the actual trunk of the tree and make it a part of that tree, and it grows as a part of that tree. And he says something interesting. He says that those limbs that do not produce fruit will be hewn down, and then there'll be other room for others to grow. The Bible says those are Jew that are Jew inwardly. It actually clarifies that it's the people that obey that are the Jews. It's not these people that are lineage, that claim lineage. It's the people that obey me. All of these evil people that have existed in the past that have completely went against what he's done, they weren't of the religion of Jew. They were of the religion of Baal, most of them, and so we have to clarify that. Just because somebody's a Jew by descent doesn't mean really, if you believe the New Testament, it doesn't mean anything. If you believe what Isaiah says, it doesn't mean anything because he's grafting in, he's pulling together all nations, those who choose to follow him, those who he chooses actually, those become the house of Israel. It's very clear that we are the seed of Abraham and heirs according to his promise. That is in the Bible. You're the seed of Abraham and an heir according to his promise. The fact that they've hidden that tells me everything, and tells me that we need to hit on that more and more because they've hidden it for a reason. Do you know what it does to somebody who has no idea what their past is or has been given a false narrative of their past? If I went up to you, Dan, and let's say you had amnesia. You had amnesia, and I told you, Dan, that you used to be a vile, sick, disgusting pervert, and you've been, used to beat people and used to do horrible things. You're in your mind, you're going to have this representation of yourself that's not really capable, right? You're going to be like, man, like that person I was sucks, man. Like I'm not capable. But if I came to you and said, Dan, you were a king, you were the king of Italy. And, you have this royal lineage within inside of you. You have this power to be able to speak life. You have this power to be able to bend things in the world because you were part of the kingdom of God. You have this power. How are you going to act differently to that versus the other, right? And then they've done this this shift with us, with all of the people of the world. How they're blaming the Christians, the straight white Christians, for all the tragedies of the world. But guess what? If it wasn't for us straight white Christians or black Christians that are straight and whatever, then this world would be a whole different ballgame than what you see. Okay, because a lot of the people that have come and done amazing, mighty things have been straight Christians, people that have tried to obey the truth of the Word of God, but they've told them that they're the reason that everybody's suppressed. You're the reason women's suppressed. You're the reason black people are suppressed. You're the reason this person's suppressed. You're the reason that person's suppressed. When in all reality, the Bible says we're a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people. And that doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, Puerto Rican. It does not matter. If you are a Jew, which is a Jew inwardly, if you are heir of the seed of Abraham, an heir according to his promise, you are a royal priesthood, a holy nation. So when the news tells you that you're a predator, when the news tells you that you're an evil person, that you're the reason that the country's going downhill, you're the reason for all the horrible things that happen, couldn't be the evil people that do the stuff. It has to be some Christian that's living this life and trying to do the best they can. It's got to be you that's the perpetrator of evil. Some people start believing it. They've been so brainwashed. These Christians are believing that they are that well, we got to bow down to everybody's needs because of this. Bullcrap. This is not who you are. You're a royal priesthood, a holy nation. If you don't act like it, guess what? You're not going to be able to walk in the promises of God that he gives us as people. He says, this is interesting, and I believe it's in Luke chapter 10, he says, behold, I give you power to tread on serpents. Mm-hmm. No weapon of the enemy shall harm you. And he says this to us. And right after he says, I beheld Satan falling like lightning. And right after he says, I send you out as sheep amidst the wolves. He says this to us. And then he goes on to tell us, but guess what? I give you power. But that's only if you really believe. That's only if you really believe. If you believe you're a watered down version, fifth generation racist, anti-feminine person, all these different things. If you believe that, then you're spending your life trying to apologize for stuff rather than walking in the power and walking with authority and speaking life and doing all of these things. And that's where we're at in the church today. And it's a shame. It's unfortunate. But this was one of the goals of this Illuminati organization, the 1666 Sabotage Zeddy crew, was to manipulate history, change the history, and make themselves look like the good guys and make the good guys look like the bad guys. And so when it comes to history, I don't believe anything that I read anymore. I've studied history since I was young, big time wanted to study history. And guess what? I have a hard time buying any of it anymore.
Yeah, it really is. And when you look into, do the real research and all that, it's like everything you learn. We cover this stuff on the shows a lot. And do the Statue of Liberty, different monuments, whatever the case, you learn one history in school when it's total opposite. You brought up the Washington Monument, has nothing to do with any of that. It's the golden penis of Nimrod, and it's the same structure in London and also in the Vatican, right? The dome building represents ISIS' pregnant belly, and the needle represents Nimrod's golden penis. You know what I mean? So it is disgusting. Everything in the occult is massively perverted, right? And that's why in the 1666 movement, redemption through sin, like John was exposing, that they really believe that you're going to commit the most heinous sin, incest, like any kind of sexual debauchery you could think of. Yeah, it was okay for them to do, and they preach that, right? And this is still the beliefs of these occults today. They believe in they're honoring their version of God, right? This androgynous God, whatever they kind of crazy God they got in the head, and that the God of the Bible is the evil one. He's the evil one, and Satan, he's our liberator. How did that work out too well? And it's not going to work out too well in the end either. So that's what they believe. You know what I mean? And they believe we're the evil ones because we just want to mind our business. This is how it is, right? Us white and black, traditional, straight Christians, right? We mind our business, right? We just want to be left alone. We just want to, land, our families, our civil liberties and all that. And, we're not going to bother nobody. Just leave us alone, right? They don't like that. They want you to conform to this new world order that you have to submit to this this globalization, right? You got to give up all your land. You got to give up everything for the greater good and all that. And you got to have nothing and you got to like it, as Klaus Schwab says. And we mentioned the false religions and all that too. This is what they're doing, guys. This all stems from 1666. The mosque, synagogue, and church being built together in Dubai, right? That's called Chrislam, right? They already got the center built. And the Jews are saying they've already got the red heifer, right? And they're actually in the way of building the third temple, right? And John brought up 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. where that person will take his throne here, the Antichrist. You know what I mean? People got to think he's the Messiah, the Maitreya, the Buddha, the whole nine yards. You know what I mean? That all the religions in the world are all conforming now under the thing called the ecumenical system, right? Which is the Pope, has these ecumenical movements at the Vatican here and there, right? And they have representatives, the top leaders from every single religion across the planet. Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, all the 700 Club clowns, all that. They all converge together to say we all serve the same God. White is the gate to heaven. You don't need Jesus. You could use Buddha to get to heaven. And the Pope says this, blasphemy out of his mouth, right? Leads this world, and the United Nations is glorifying this, which is Rothschild too, to say we all serve the same God, and it's such a beautiful thing, world peace. But, the Bible says when they call for peace, sudden destruction is going to come upon them, because this is not the peace, the same peace Jesus offered. Jesus says there's a difference between the peace he offers and what the world can offer. What the world is offering, guys, is fake peace, is destructive. Don't fall into it. Don't buy into it. When you see people from all religions gathered around, all joining hands together, that's not good, guys. It's great that everybody's joining together, but the point is under false banner. We should all be joined together under Jesus. So,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's sickening that people buy into this because it's popular. That's the thing, too. And the thing is, this traditional Christian stuff, it's not popular at all. The modern-day churches, these big mega churches, they're preaching all this garbage out there, right? And, we get into this stuff all the time. But if you go out to say we all serve the same God, you're going to be a big ministry. Oh, you got to be raking millions of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
sickening. Good job, Brian.
Well, one thing I'm just listening to everything you're saying too, especially all these religions and whatnot, and they're looking for this savior, right? Yep. So you got the Vatican and everything, and you got the Pope saying that he's going to baptize aliens. And what do you see when you see the mainstream media? They're pushing the agenda for these alien-like creatures, all these whistleblowers, everything. They're literally trying to get us so accustomed to that, and the programming is so getting their tentacles in your brain, planting that seed. These people, I hate to say it, but all of them are going to. There's going to be a lot of people bow, but they're not be bound to the right. They're not be bound to the Jesus Christ, the Messiah or Savior. They're going to be bound to other things, and there's nothing under the sun. I mean, that's what they're tuning everybody for, and this whole mind control narrative. It's getting pushed the whole. I think this next week Congress is doing some big hearings about the UAP UFOs. This stuff is going down this stuff's coming to coming to us pretty quick. Okay. So, and they're going to, the Pentagon, everybody, there's some suppression, they're trying to, there's some battles going inland, inward and interior, exterior, motives, but, this stuff's going to start leaking out more and more each day, each month, each hour. And it's going to start, it's going to shake people's faith. And if you're not grounded into the scriptures and grounded with that base understanding of the precious words of Jesus, you're going to be falling by the wayside. You're literally going to be deceived by the fallen powers. Like I said earlier, Ephesians 6 verse 12. That's what we're battling every day. So
and now going into this final segment of this here too. We're into the world banks. Now, this has all been constructed since this. The whole thing's been leading up to this with the Rothschild and all that to establish a centralized bank. Now, we just came over that. The World Economic Forum just announced again, it's nothing new. This is probably the fourth time they announced that they want to implant everybody with a microchip for the digital currency, right? And they got this, the World Coin that's going on, I think it's called, right? Let me get to that quick. We're going to do a show on it Wednesday, but the World Coin that they're over 2 million people have accepted this, and they're pushing the central bank digital currency, guys, and it's all from the central bank stuff. So the Federal Reserve, which was established, and if John's got a lot of information on it too, the central bank, which is here in America, people think the Federal Reserve is actually federal. It's not. It's a central European central bank that's controlled by the Rothschild. They exchange our currency literally. So Becky, the long story short. Back in the early 1900s, we had two banks in America, right? We had the Bank of the United States of America. It was a gold standard backed bank, right? Then the Federal Reserve that was being pushed there, right? In 1913, on Jekyll Island, they all discussed the elite, and then President FDR, right? He fully initiated the Federal Reserve to full power. He put an order out. If anybody owned gold, right, your own property, you had to, by law, turn that gold in because he said it now belonged to the Federal Reserve, right? Then that was the complete end of the United States Bank. The Bank of the United States of America, backed by gold currency, gone, right? Now we're on a fiat system, right? And this is all designed, controlled by the Rothschild to bring in a central bank to destroy this country economically, right? So, John, if you want to elaborate on that and how it's all connected here too.
Yeah, man. As we said before, one of the aspects of this Sabbatean mysticism, this Kabbalah, is money, control of the money. Mm-hmm. There's going to be perversion involved. And if you think about it, what are the two things that are coming down? What systems are now coming down? We have the regular monetary system mm-hmm. that we've had for a long time coming down. The believe it or not, the Rothschilds, people like that, have been fighting against this, the digital currency. They're not ready for that to happen because if that happens, they relinquish control. Mm-hmm. This is scary for them, right? This is scary, but they are that wing of the Sabbatean mystics that controlled the money for a long time. So now we have a new system coming in that's going to be changing the money systems. And when they've been in control of all this perversion and trafficking for so long, which the Epstein thing plays a huge role in all of this, now they are going to be ousted. And so we have a new system coming in that in Second Ezra, it talks about the three-headed eagle, and it talks about one side of the head of the eagle eating the other side. Mm-hmm. Revelation, it talks about the 10 kings devouring the whore. This is where we're at right now. We're mm-hmm. at a point right now to where a power shift is happening. And people, Ryan, you hit on something that people are going to be deceived, and I want to say something here. That you were right on. These people are going to be so excited, so very excited about what's happening. People are already getting emotional. People that I didn't think would be so easily fooled are super emotional. Like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. At least they're doing something, even though knowing that they're funded by Mormons, knowing that they're funded mm-hmm. by people that are traffickers themselves, Bill Clinton Foundation, all of these different, Churchill, all these, or not Churchill, but what's the guy's name? Kissinger. All of these different people are connected in all of this, knowing that, but they're doing something. So, let's hype them up. Let's get involved. And sure, they're doing something. I'm grateful for it. I'm actually glad to see it. But what I do know is this: people are going to be so loyal to that system of them doing that they're going to fall hook, line, and sinker for this chip that you're talking about, Dan. This chip that you're talking about.
Yep.
They're going to fall hook, line, and sinker for it because that's the only way logically to stop human trafficking. There's no other way I can think of. You can kill all the pedophiles you want, but there's going to be new ones prop up because there are just millions of them out mm-hmm. there. Millions of them. People don't understand that a lot of the traffickers, a lot of the people that are doing child molestations are actually people that we know and trust, family members, right? Family members doing it. They don't talk about all that in their interviews. They don't even really talk about who is all involved. Sometimes it's just the fact that there's traffickers. Trump just came out with an article. Somebody just sent me this article. Trump said that when he's in power, he's going to have the death penalty for all these traffickers. So they're going after this organization. It's going to look like light manifested. It's going to look like light manifested in a big way. But ultimately, the only solution is microchips for children. That's really, if you're a worldly person, you don't really take into account the Bible. It makes sense. There's actually what's wrong with that? Yeah, we got to know where all the children are. If we know where all the children are, we can't lose them, right? Because they're all chipped. If we got to know, so it makes sense to a worldly mindset. Now, to those of us who have read Revelation, to those of us who believe in the coming of the Messiah, that it's going to be a supernatural coming. He's going to come and he's going to save the world. The microchip sounds horrible. It sounds like slavery, which is actually what it is. But to a worldly person, man, this is it. This is the way. This is the way, and this is what they're going to be pushing. It's huge, and the symbols are all there.
Exactly, John. That mentioned Mormonism, right? So we just did a broadcast with David the other day on FLJC. So we just peeling back the youngin, so to speak, and Joseph Smith. So Joseph Smith is told by the angel Moroni. Did I say it correctly?
Moroni. Like
Moroni.
macaroni.
Macaroni. Morona. The other day I said moron accidentally, forgive me, but Morona. So the angel moves him to go dig in the backyard, and then he lo and behold has these golden plates, these golden tablets that are reformed of Egyptian dialect, Egyptian language, and then he uses this seer stone to translate it into the English language to its transparency, so he can actually articulate what he's doing and then turn it into the English language. And then lo and behold, pop, there's the Book of Mormons. So what I'm getting at, my point is, the angels, we have fallen angel deities moving and shaking man's steps and delegating and moving people along. There's these divisions, or however you want to say it, but there's these districts, so these angelic properties that are moving and shaking and having men implement these certain things. And that's what we're seeing. I was mentioning, or I kept mentioning in Ephesians 6 verse 12. So if you got these angels moving people back, just literally not that long ago, 1800s, and that's what the Book of Mormons is based off of. I mean, you can go look it up. So it's kind of interesting how that all plays out. And then and then another thing, it was in an Indian mound, and that's kind of up my alley when it comes to researching Indian mounds. But what's going on today? You don't hear about it. Like we mentioned earlier about the constellations and the Omicron. And what are they doing down there? What is these elitists? What are they doing down there in Antarctica? What do you want to bet me? They're talking to angelic deities. They have to be. And they're getting shooken and shaken and doing these rituals, and there's blood sacrifices, all these different things. And they're getting technology on the back end. It has to be. You can go back in any kind of, you can get into the Indian cultures, Hopis, all these different cultures, different Indians was talking about it. They was talking about they would give their women and children up, and then sure enough, these entities would give them technology. There's nothing new in the sun, and that's what we're facing today. And that I think it's a huge power shift right now. But like you're saying, implementing these chips and stuff, it's unbelievable.